Pawn Star's favorite Chum ends up overpaying for a video game, and it went as expected. The neon lights of Las Vegas never dim, and neither does the action inside the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop. For over a decade, Pawn Stars has brought viewers into the heart of American commerce through the lens of unique items, strange antiques, and eccentric personalities. Among the most beloved characters in the show's history is Richard "Rick" Harrison, the sharp-talking pawnbroker who built his empire on deals, instincts, and a deep knowledge of collectibles. But no episode of Pawn Stars would be complete without one other key figure, Chum. A fixture in the shop since the show's early days, Chum is known for his dry wit, encyclopedic knowledge of pop culture, and perhaps most famously, his tendency to overpay, especially when it comes to video games. It was during one particularly memorable taping that Chum found himself face-to-face with what he believed was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity: an original copy of Super Mario Bros. 3, still sealed and in pristine condition. He had seen the headlines about rare video game auctions where cartridges sold for tens of thousands of dollars. Nintendo titles from the 1980s were becoming collector's gold. So when a young man walked into the shop with this particular game, Chum's eyes lit up. "What do you want for it?" Chum asked, already holding the box like it was the Holy Grail. "$10,000, the seller replied confidently. Rick, who had been watching from behind the counter, raised an eyebrow. "You know how much these go for online?" he asked, clearly skeptical. "Oh yeah," Chum said, nodding. "I saw one sell for $15,000 last month." Rick gave him a look, the kind that said, "Here we go again." But Chum was already deep into negotiations. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through auction sites, and started rattling off numbers. "This one here went for $12,000 just last week. If it's graded by WATA, it could be worth even more." WATA Games, a third-party grading service for vintage video games, had become the standard for collectors. A perfect score from them could send prices soaring. Chum was convinced that this game, if submitted to WATA, could fetch top dollar. Against Rick's better judgment, and after some back and forth involving a reluctant customer and a growing sense of urgency, Chum offered $8,500 for the game. Rick didn't like it. "We're not in the business of gambling, Chum," he warned. "If that game isn't graded or turns out to be fake, we're stuck with it." But Chum was undeterred. "Trust me, Rick. This is the real deal. I can feel it." And so, with cameras rolling and the tension rising, the deal was made. The seller left the shop with a check and a smile. Chum held the game aloft like a trophy, already planning its journey to WATA. The next few weeks were filled with anticipation. Chum couldn't stop talking about the game. He showed it off to customers, told stories about playing it as a kid, and even joked about selling it at auction himself. Meanwhile, Rick kept a close eye on the situation. He knew that while Chum had good taste in collectibles, he also had a habit of letting nostalgia cloud his judgment. More than once, Chum had fallen in love with a piece of memorabilia only to discover it wasn't as rare or valuable as he thought. Finally, the package arrived back from WATA. Chum opened it with trembling hands. Inside was the game, now safely encased in a plastic slab with a grade printed on the label, 9.4 A plus sealed. "That's amazing," Chum shouted. "That's nearly perfect." Rick, who had been watching from across the counter, nodded cautiously. "Okay, so what's it worth now?" Chum did a quick search online. "At least $10,000, he said proudly. "Maybe more if we wait for the right buyer." So they listed it online. They posted photos, highlighted the grade, and even included a short video showing the game in its case. Bidding started slowly but picked up steam over the next few days. Then came the final bid, $10,500. Chum was ecstatic. We made money, he said, high-fiving Austin, Rick's son and fellow pawnbroker. Smiled, but his tone remained measured. You got lucky this time, Chum. But then something unexpected happened. Just hours after the auction ended, Chum received a message from the winning bidder. The buyer had changed his mind. He says he thinks the game might be resealed, Chum said, reading the message aloud. What? Austin asked. How can he tell from a photo? He says the shrink wrap doesn't look right, Chum replied, suddenly deflated. Rick leaned back in his chair. Welcome to the world of collectibles, buddy. Chum tried to reassure the buyer, offering to provide additional photos and even suggesting a second opinion from another expert. But the buyer remained firm. The sale was off. With no buyer, Chum was stuck with the game again. He tried relisting it, but interest was minimal. The market for high-end video games had cooled slightly, and there were now multiple copies of Super Mario Bros., 3 appearing on the market. What had once seemed like a sure thing now felt like a gamble gone bad. Weeks turned into months. The game sat in the display case, untouched and unsold. Rick, ever the pragmatist, finally spoke up. You've got to cut your losses, Chum. But it's worth something, Chum insisted. Maybe, Rick said. But we're not a museum. We're a business. Eventually, Chum agreed to lower the price. After several more failed attempts to find a buyer, he finally sold the game for $7,200, nearly $1,300 less than what he paid for it. As he handed the game over to the new owner, Chum sighed. Guess I got caught up in the hype. Rick clapped him on the shoulder. That's how it goes sometimes. But hey, at least you learned something. Chum chuckled. Yeah, next time I'm leaving the bidding to you. Despite his occasional missteps, Chum remains one of the most popular figures on Pawn Stars. His passion for pop culture, his deep knowledge of comics, movies, and yes, video games makes him a favorite among fans. He brings energy, enthusiasm, and a sense of fun to every transaction. But more importantly, he reminds viewers that even experts make mistakes. That's part of what makes Pawn Stars so compelling. It's not just about buying and selling. It's about people, their stories, and the lessons they learn along the way. Chum's overpayment for the Super Mario Bros. 3 cartridge wasn't just a financial loss, it was a reminder of the risks involved in any investment, especially when emotions are involved. Nostalgia can be a powerful motivator, but it can also lead to poor decisions. Still, Chum wouldn't have it any other way. I'd rather chase a dream and miss than play it safe all the time, he said in a later interview. Besides, if I didn't take chances, we wouldn't have half the stories we do. In the grand scheme of things, $1,300 isn't a huge loss for a business like the gold and silver pawn shop. But for Chum, it was a learning experience, one that continues to shape the way he approaches potential purchases. Since then, he's been more cautious. He double-checks item authenticity, consults with experts before making big moves, and occasionally lets Rick handle the negotiations. But he hasn't stopped loving video games. Every now and then, someone walks in with a rare title, and Chum's eyes light up again. He asks questions, checks the serial numbers, and inspects the packaging with the care of a museum curator. Sometimes he buys, sometimes he passes. Chum's overpayment for Super Mario Bros. 3 may have gone exactly as expected, but it also served as a microcosm of the broader collectibles market, a world where rarity, nostalgia, and perception often dictate value more than objective reality. His story resonates because it's human. It shows that even in a place as fast-paced and profit-driven as a pawn shop, passion still plays a role. It proves that mistakes aren't failures, they're stepping stones. And for Chumley, every mistake is just another chapter in a long-running series of adventures at the gold and silver pawn shop.